Today, we're going to jump into a really powerful idea. The fact that your entire life is a form of communication. Seriously. Every action, every word, every single choice you make is sending a message to the world about who you believe God to be.
So let's just start with this question, right up front. If your life is a language, what is it actually saying about God? Imagine your life as a book. If someone read it from cover to cover, what would they honestly conclude about the God you follow? This is the big question we're going to unpack together.
All right, let's dive into section 1. We've got to start with this foundational premise. For a Christian, everything you do is basically a sermon. Yep. Whether you mean for it to be or not, your life is speaking, loud and clear. Now, this quote here is fantastic. Ray Anderson says, every act of ministry teaches something. But here's where it gets really interesting. We can actually expand that idea. It's not just about what you do in ministry. It's that every single act of a Christian's life teaches the world something about God. It's an unavoidable part of living out your faith. So here's the bottom line. There's a real weight to this. In the Gospels, people looked at Jesus' life to understand God the Father. Well, now, in a very real way, the world looks at the lives of Christians to try and understand Jesus. We've become the living, walking, breathing messages that people read every single day. Okay, so that brings us to the next logical question, right? If our lives are sending a message, what should that message be? And where does it even come from? Let's dig into that by looking at the true source of our character. The Bible uses this beautiful, organic metaphor. A Christian is like a branch that has been grafted onto the vine, and that vine is Jesus. Now, this isn't just some casual connection, it's a life source connection. The very nature of the branch is going to be determined by the nature of the vine it's attached to. And this verse from James just illustrates the point perfectly. It's a simple law of nature, right? What you are connected to determines what you produce. You just can't get figs from a grapevine. It doesn't work that way. And in the same way, the fruit of our lives, our character, our actions, has to logically match the source we say we're connected to. And this is exactly why the idea of holiness is so central to everything. It's not about just following a list of rules. It's about our character being a true, accurate reflection of God's character. Because when our lives are out of sync with His nature, well, God's name and His reputation are what get affected in the eyes of the world. Okay, so we know our character should reflect God's. But why? What's the point? What's the function of all this? The answer is so fascinating. It's not really for us. It's for the world around us. Think about the two metaphors Jesus used for His followers, salt and light. What do they have in common? They are both, by their very nature, other-oriented. Salt doesn't exist to be salty for itself. No, it exists to flavor and preserve something else. Light doesn't shine for its own benefit. It shines to light up the way for others. Their entire value is wrapped up in the effect they have on their surroundings. And Jesus Himself was totally direct about this. He said the whole purpose of our light, of our good deeds, is so that others will see them and then give glory back to God. Our character is meant to be a signpost, pointing people away from us and straight toward Him. That light metaphor is especially powerful. Biblically, darkness isn't just, a lack of light. It's a spiritual reality tied to confusion and death. But here's the thing. Light and darkness can't be in the same place at the same time. When light shows up, darkness has to go. And that is the role we're called to play, to bring the clarity and the life of God's character right into the dark places of the world. So far, we've talked a lot about you, the individual. But here's the thing. This responsibility was never meant to be carried alone. This is a team sport. It's a collective project, a task for the entire community of faith. And that brings us to this key idea. The community of character. So what is that? Well, it's a group of people who are intentionally shaping one another, helping each other develop the kind of virtues, the kind of moral fiber that's needed to be a credible witness for God out there in the world. Theologian Stanley Hauerwas actually argues that this is the most important social task of the church. It's not just about running programs or having services. It's about actively becoming a place that forges people of deep, profound character. So how do we even measure this? How can we think about how well our community is actually reflecting God? Well, that leads to our final big idea, the character index. Just think of it as a way to kind of gauge the alignment between our character and God's. The goal is so simple, but it's also incredibly profound. It's to close the gap between our community's character index and God's character index. See, when that gap is huge, the message the world gets about God is distorted. It's inaccurate, it's confusing, but when we shrink that gap, the message becomes clear, compelling, and true. And this right here is the ultimate call to action. It's a reminder of who you are. You were darkness. That was your old address. But now in the Lord, you are light. So the command isn't to become something you're not. It's to simply live like the person you already are. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This isn't just theory, right? It's a personal responsibility, and it's a collective one. So the question isn't just about your own character anymore. It's about how your life, your choices, and how you encourage others. How will all of that help raise the character index of your entire community? How will you make the message of God clearer and more beautiful to a world that's watching?